because today's message, we're coming from a book called Adam, Where Are You? Why Most Black Men Don't Go to Church by Kawanji Kunjufu. And the guys have read this book. It's an old classic from 1994. And the chapter 5 is why some black men don't go to church. But some of the reasons why black men don't go to church, Kawanji Kunjufu, when he wrote this book, he did a survey of all of the reasons, asking black men why they don't go to church. And they gave their 21 top reasons of why they don't. And I'm just going to run through them really quick here, and then I'll have you guys break them apart and talk about the ones you want. The number one here was hypocrisy. Number 2, ego or dictatorial. Number 3 was faith, submission, trust, forgiveness, angry at God. 4, passivity. 5, tithing. 6, irrelevance. 7, Eurocentric. 8, length of service. 9, too emotional. 10, sports, meaning Sunday happens to be the most sports day of the week. 11, attire, dress code. 12, classism, unemployment. 13, education. 14, sexuality and drugs. 15, homosexuality. 16, spirituality, worshiping alone, universalism. 17, heaven. 18, evangelism. 19, lack of Christian role models, which we talk about a lot on the show. 20, streets and peer pressure. 21, parental double standards, forced when a child.
Of correcting this, and that's what the whole thing he said, the Eurocentricity in the church. We strip Christ of his Jewishness at times, it seems, and make him westernized. We make him American. And that happens far too often. And like I said, I don't think it's corrected enough. Like a lot of pastors, or at least to me, enough pastors do not denounce the idea Jesus is from America, or he's a Western Jesus.
Probably one of the biggest issues that we have is the relevance of church. You know, we long ago, it's almost like we stopped serving the community. And actually, I was talking, and one of the things we were talking about is trying to create some initiatives around it, is that we come to church, we have church, and then we tell people, you need to come to church, but we don't, why? Why is it? What is the church offering me that the world does not? And we don't really get into, the church is supposed to be a place of healing. We're not healing people. And so why would I go to a hospital that's not going to heal? I have issues. And I think we as a church, we're not impacting those issues. Or if we are, we're not articulating it well enough to the people on the streets so that they can understand what it is we're supposed to be doing. Before Jesus did anything, he solved people's problems, right?
The biggest problem with the church is that we're not bringing or taking the gospel anywhere. The church today expects for those who are lost to come to the gospel. So when you said that, I was like, oh, wow, he's onto something, because, I mean, why would a black man come to the church or in the church when we're supposed to go to them? We're supposed to draw them. The Bible says that we're supposed to be what? Fishers of men. So they're sitting back in the houses, wherever they are, but why aren't we going to them? So the other thing that bothered me too, because I grew up in the church. I grew up in church. And not only did she ask me that, being forced to go to church, that was my outlet to say, man, I don't really want to go back. But it was so many homosexuals in church that I was like, wait a minute, I don't fit in with these guys. The only, at certain points in church, sometimes men, they be like, the only person I feel like I fit in with is the pastor, because I think he a cool dude. He over all these women, and he over all. So then you like, but then you get to other departments and you like, oh man, look at these dudes, man. Or these wannabe, you know. So that's a big thing too for black men, because being out there in the streets, man, the number one thing, man, I don't want to be around homosexuals. That's the number one thing they'll tell you.
At least, again, these were the excuses used. Awesome points. One of the other things, and I liked all the points here, but I'm going to go back to the number one part he had here, because I think this is a huge one too. This is one of the things I heard even from my own son, was the hypocrisy piece. I was like, okay, I'm seeing these people. I go places on Saturday night, but I'm seeing them church people at the place on Saturday night, if you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a huge piece.
I was going to say, too, regarding the hypocrisy piece, man, I think that there's elements of that I think that could be misconstrued as well, or even not taught. So the hypocrisy is obviously still going to be the point, but I think some of that, too, outside looking in, we need to understand the reality of what's taking place there. And this is not a green light for anybody to just wild out and just do what they want to do.
Right.
But if the church is a hospital, so to speak, we need to have a chance for people to be able to come there anyway.
So we're doing two pieces to this. We're going to do chapter 5, and then in the next episode, we're going to do the chapter 6, which sort of answers these problems. So we're just giving the excuses that, and we're calling
Why they don't go.
excuses, why they don't go. So we know that it's only an excuse. And we're,
Exactly.
as men, we're saying that's not a good enough excuse, but we heard your excuse. So in the next episode, we're going to explain them just like you did there, Brian. We're going to do that, the bulk of that explaining in the next piece. If you okay?
So it's our responsibility, once we hear the excuses, to come up with the response, right? We're not supposed to accept it. Oh, here's my excuse. Nah, man, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah. But it's that churches and pastors hear this piece because you need to, before you, see, this is where the problem where churches and ministry go wrong. We don't listen to what people are saying.
Amen.
When people saying, this is why I don't go, and say, man, that ain't no excuse. I don't want to hear that. That's where that's wrong. No, we do need to hear what they're saying.
We do.
And when they're
Most
pointing
definitely.
out these 21 points here, there's some valid pieces to it because I saw certain things with my own eyes for myself. And I heard what you said, which is true, but I know what I saw. And I saw a lot of these things very close up. I didn't see this from a distance. I saw this, well, again, real close up. And so we want to be able to address those things because we want to make sure that because people do what they're taught. And I'm gonna also say this. A lot of people, believers, have actually never been discipled.
That is true.
Oh, I agree with you.
All right. So
The ones that go to the church ain't been discipled. That's in
Right.
church every
and
week.
so
Been going
that's
for
right.
20, 30 years and don't know nothing.
And never been discipled, and then they actually don't know. So I'm not trying to take the blame off of them, but at the same time, that's a part of it. So I do want to hit on the things that we can make sure, because each one of us here is spiritual. There is a lot more to this conversation, so hear the remainder of this episode, catch the podcast, subscribe, and never miss a show. Man to Man 360 can be found wherever you get your podcasts.